Hi and welcome to Mandy's Makings. Today we are going to do a wire wrapping tutorial and we're going to make some fun rings. So this is all the same pattern, just utilized in different ways. This one looks quite nice, as you can see. See if I can get it to focus on there for you. Just give me a second. Come on, be nice. There we go. And then this one is the same ring but beaded instead, and then this one has some fire polished in the middle of it. So they're quite simple. I've made this one quite tight for me. So I'm going to show you how to make these quickie rings, wire wrapped rings, and again you can do them any way you like, put anything in them, and I'll explain how that works as you go. So you're going to need some tools today. So as always, all the list of ingredients or materials you're going to need are below in the show more button, and please like, share, and subscribe if you want to see further videos like this. It's really important that you do that. So you're going to need some tools. You're going to need a ruler, obviously. You're going to need a ring mandrel or something that's the right size ring for you. Definitely going to need it today. You're going to need some flush cutters. You're going to need some pliers, needle nose, round nose. You're going to need wire straighteners if you need to straighten your wire. You're going to need 18 gauge wire and 26 gauge wire. And then you're going to need, if you're going to put beads in it, you're going to need whatever beads you want to do. These are some 4mm, I think these are called vitriol colored beads that I'm going to use today. So get all your materials together. You're going to need a 4-inch piece. You actually are going to need just a little less than that. I'm going to do my ring finger. This one here is a size 9.5. I have large fingers, so I'm going to make a 9.5 inch size ring so you can see how that works. So cut off your 4-inch piece, make sure it's flush on both ends, and come right back. Okay, I'm back, and we're going to start with the first part of this. So let me just zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. See if I can get this to focus for me nicely. There we go. Sorry about the wiggling. My camera is still on an arm that's flexible, but at least it's not attached to my desk anymore, so it doesn't wiggle when I move as much. So it's a little bit better. So I have about 18 inches of the weaving wire, and I have two 4-inch pieces of my 18 gauge. And the 18 gauge makes the ring sturdy enough that you don't have to worry about things. Oh yeah, you're going to need a hammer. My ring mandrel's metal, so I'm going to hammer it right on the ring mandrel, but you don't have to hammer it. One of them I didn't hammer, it doesn't really matter. So what I do is I take the very end tip, and I'm using my new really super thin nosed tweezer pliers, and I'm just going to take it and I'm making the smallest loop I possibly can. As you can see, it's really tiny, which is really awesome. I'm enjoying that part of these new pliers. And then I'm going to take it and bring it around and make a loop, sort of a spirally loop. Now, the width of your ring is going to be determined by the size of your loops. So if you want a really wide ring to do lots of beading in or put lots of stuff in, then you're going to need bigger loops. You can adjust these as you go, but start with whatever size works for you at the beginning. So the second one, I'm going to do the same thing. So this is much like in all the other things I showed you, where you start a loop. So you make the little P, and then I just take it and put my pliers back in, and I'm leaving it looser as I'm sort of coming around rather than pulling it in as tight so that it makes a loop. So this one's bigger than this one, obviously, so I need to tighten that up or straighten this out. So I'm going to straighten that out a little bit and tighten that in a bit. So the idea is to get them sort of around the same size. They don't have to be perfect because you can tweak them as you go. And I like to make sure that there's some space at the back side here or at the bottom side. See how the loop sort of comes down, and this one's not the same as that one. So let me just pull that around a bit. Okay, so now the cut side of the loop's coming down on the same, and there's some space on this back side here, and that's important because you'll need to put your wire around it as you go. So there's my two loops. They're close, they're not exactly the same. So now I take my ring mandrel, and whatever size you need, I'm going to do it around a 10. So I just put the one loop here, and I take this around my ring mandrel, and I bring it around to the other side. As I said, this is more wire than I need, so I'm just putting it on the ring mandrel around size 10. And if you put beads on it that will have any sort of height to them at all, like fire polish, you need to make it a size bigger than you want it to end up being, because the beads will eat up some of the space against your finger and make it fit tighter. So I'm going to go to 11, make sure that I'm on there as tight as I can, and I'm going to take it off. And I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. So there's an 11. I'm going to push it against, so I'm just pushing it against the ring mandrel, and I'm just bringing it around. It's pretty as I hold it there, and I'm just pushing it down against the ring mandrel. Okay. Wrong way, can't take it off the ring mandrel that way. So now, other than reshaping, because I might bend something, you don't really need your ring, well, you're going to need it one more time. So I can see that I have too much wire here, because what I need to do is make these loops on either end come so that they're side by side each other. So this is, when I make a loop with this, it would be a massive loop on one side and a small loop on the other. And that could be a design choice that you make. That's up to you. So I'm going to cut this off a little bit. So I'm leaving myself, that's basically a finger's width, from the edge of this loop here to where I'm cutting, so that's about the same amount. So that'll allow me, so I'm not taking much off. So I could have started off with a little bit smaller wire, but if you don't know what ring you're making, so this one, as you can see, I have a little bit more, and I don't know why, but I do. I'm going to take that off. I'll come in a little bit more. So I'm just cutting it with a flush side towards the work, so I don't have to worry about it. So you have two choices here. You can make your loops go opposite ways, which gives you this kind of look. Let's see. So this is what you end up with on the sides, and it changes sort of the appearance of if they go the opposite way. Or if you do them the same way, the loops end up all in the center. Or you can put them with this ring. They're actually 2 loops here and 2 loops on the other side. So depends on what you want to do. I'm going to do them so the loops are the same way rather than opposite. And so to do that, I'm just going to tweak this. I'm not bending it open. I'm just like a jump ring. I'm opening it to this side so that I can get my pliers in here and do another loop. This on this side that matches the other loop. So I'm just taking it to the end of my pliers. Whoops. Too far to the end. There we go. And these pliers are so skinny, it's easy to take to go too far down. And I'm just sort of getting my thumb in there so I can push against my thumb. And I got too close to the end. There we go. My thumb in there so I could have something to push against. Take my pliers and then do the looser loop. And this one's a little harder to do because you want it to sort of match. So see how this are sort of matching? And you can see that one's tighter than the other. That's okay, we'll tweak it a bit as we go. I'm just pulling that out a little bit to give more space. So you have basically your size ring with 2 loops on the thing. Now, if you wanted to add beads and just do these with the 2 loops and make them adjustable, you could definitely do that. And you could just put the beads on before, like at this stage, before you do your second loop. Put the beads all the way around it, make your second loop, leaving enough space, basically leaving your beads from here down so that you have enough space to make your loop. So I need to do it the same way. So again, I need to take this and put it over the other side. And I'm just trying to grab the wire best I can and bring it around. And then I'm going to bring my pliers back in and do that looser loop. And that's pretty close. So now I need my ring mandrel again. So this is like too big. See how it's too big? I could go down to like 12. So I need to take it back to my 11 because I'm going to add beads, fire polish to it, 4mm fire polish. So because of that, I need to, and sorry about the glare off of my mandrel. And so what I'm going to do now is take my loops, and I'm going to take one at a time, and I'm going to tweak them a little further against my mandrel to sort of tighten this up. So I want them to come so they just touch, so they're still, I can still overlap them some. I can take this and flatten this out a little bit on the ends there. So let's get you out here. And normally I do this under my magnifier so I can see better, but it's fine. Still a little, so I'm trying to do what I do to one side, I'm trying to do the other side so that I can sort of keep them fairly even. They don't have to be perfect, and that's the cool thing about all this. So now, there's my size 11. I can see that I can just barely push them together, like almost not quite perfect, because that'll, when I, you know, I'm going to have to loosen off a little bit. So when you look at the loops, I'm going to be attaching these two loops together. So I need, see how this wire is against this wire? It's too tight. So I need to just, I'm going to leave this end, I'm not going to try to move this end, I'm just going to move this end out a bit. So I need to get my pliers in there somehow. And I'm just going to pull it towards the back side of the ring. See how I made some space for wire in there? And I need to do the same thing with this one. And this is a place where you can like flatten your loops out. Make sure that they're all level with each other. So I can see it's too tight here too. So again, I'm just going to take it, hold on to the wire, and pull it away from the wire a little bit so I made some space. Okay, so you're going to do that with both of these, and then at this point, at this stage too, if you want to, once I get it to the right size and everything's perfect, I can take it, and I don't do it where the numbers are, I just swirl it around, and you can hammer the outside to give it some density. I'm going to do that. I'm going to hammer just take my hammer. I'm not going to do it on film because it makes too much noise, but I'm just going to take my hammer and hammer around the outside and harden. You don't need to hammer or worry about the loops so much as just sort of the whole ring band itself, and that'll just give it some strength. So I'm going to do that to the other one, and when I have both of them ready, we're going to come back. Okay, so I'm back. I have both of them done. And I've hammered them just slightly, just to, you know, work harden them a little bit. So you have some choices at this point. The one you saw with all the silver on the top, and that's it. I just, what you're doing is taking the one ring and the other ring, making sure they're both the same size, that the loops are approximately the same size. Remember how I tweaked the loops so there was space to wire weave. So you can take the two like this and wire weave across the whole top. And that's what I did, and these will come together, like see how those will actually come together, so you won't have any space between them. So you can do it that way, or you can do them opposite and make your ring wider, and that's what I did when I did them opposite. I wire wove one end on, then I wire wove the other end on, and then I took wire and put beads in between it, so then you end up with this kind of cool ring, and you can do lots of fun stuff with that. Or you can do them so that they're a little space apart. Now, one of the cool things is when you write one end, the other end, it'll still move and slide. So if you need a little bit more space or a little bit less space, you can definitely do that. So I can make it enough for one bead. I can make it enough for 3 beads, 4 beads, 5 beads, whatever I need. And what ends up happening is I'm going to put this on my finger without, it's not tied together, but you'll get the idea. This ends up on one side, and the other loops come towards, you know, the back side of my finger. So see how I can make it as wide as I want across the top, so that it ends up being, I can make my loop showing there. So you can figure that out as you go along, okay? So what you're going to do is take a piece of weaving wire. I've got about 18 inches of my 26 gauge weaving wire. And the first thing we're going to want to do is anchor it. So what I tend to do is I just take it and I put it around here, and I just make a couple of loops, wraps, just like I would for anything else. Put them, squeeze them together, and I don't want to waste my tail, so I'm going to stick my tail through and make a couple of loops with my tail. Nothing spectacular, probably just 4. And I can't see them, so let me see. Dunk, there we go. Put them nice and clean together. So now I need to come and put the 2 loops together. So I'm going to take it, and I'm just literally coming from one loop to the other loop. And this first one is easy because I could just come in through the hole. If I'm paying attention, there we go. Come in through the hole. So see how it just goes across the, I don't know if you can see that, it just goes across here. So I've just taken it from the back side and gone across. I'm actually going to pull this in tighter because I don't need that. I don't like the wire showing like that across the back. So I'm just shoveling that up. See how I just took that up a little bit? So I'm just going to pull this in so that it cleans up the wire across the back side there. It's still going to be there, but it's not going to show as much. So I need to do several wire wraps here, probably 3 or 4. And now, because I want the wires to lay beside each other, I can't just wrap it around anymore. So that's why I left that space, because I'm going to come up through here. And I'm going to pull, and I have to put my fingers over it when I pull so that it keeps them from overlapping. Okay, you just want to lay them down beside each other. And I know I'm wiggling around a lot because I'm dealing with a wire. So then I need to take the wire back down. You want to take it back down on, so you can see the 2 wires are laying right here. So I want to come down on the other side of it. I'm still on the same hole, but I don't want them to cross over each other. So I'm being careful about this, how I'm laying my wire down. And I'm just trying to keep the nice big fat loops like we always do, so I don't get kinks in my wire. And again, I'm going to hold and pull, and that laid that 3rd one down beside it. So I'm going to do one more. Again, come up. And sorry, I'm wiggling around so much here. It's hard with wire work to shoot this, especially when you're doing small stuff. Okay, so I need to make sure that I'm just pushing those over because I want to make sure there's space for this wire to lay beside the other ones, and I don't want them to be coming around each other. Back down through the hole. Hold on to the one, make sure it's laying down. Sometimes you can stick your fingernail actually up near the other wires, in front of the other wires, so that it forces it to lay there. So normally I take this under my magnifying glass to see, but you can just tighten them up there. So now you have this coming down along the back. So again, you can bring this and bring it in here across the back, and then now we have to come through the actual ring. So this is fastened. So if you were just putting beads on and then you did the spiral after you put the beads on, your beads would all be on here. I'm just giving it a little tweak. And we're going to do 4 wraps like we started at the beginning on this side. I'm just making sure at this point that they're laying down beside each other. I'm not worrying about them being perfectly together. I mean, I can squish them in pretty easily. And I can squish them in with my pliers too afterwards, should I need it. So there's 4. Now I can leave this on, and I can just take this and sort of hold this here and go from there and start putting my beads on. Or I can, there's lots of different things I can do. I can wire wrap down the one side and then do this other one. What I tend to do is I tend to do the one side, cut it off, and then I do the other side, and then I do my bead work in between afterwards. So let's do the cutting off. So I'm going to bring this upwards because I don't want that on the bottom side of my ring. And I'm just going to move my hammer and stuff out of the way because I don't need that anymore. And when I cut my wires, as I always say, I always like to take it and tuck it in so that it's going to be cut not level with the top, but sort of halfway down the side of the wire, which is like hard to do. But I don't want to cut anything else while I'm at it. So I cut the one, and I'm just going to take it and smooth it in. And what it tends to do is wrap around the top a little bit when you smooth it in. I'm just tucking in, just making sure there's nothing sticking or poking, so I'm good. And this one is the same. Right now it's just wrapped across the top. So I'm going to take it and put it around the back side. And I'm sort of hiding these loops, the cuts inside of these round pieces, so that I don't have see how I just moved that over? That's just fine. So that they're less likely to be get caught on something and, you know, possibly open up or anything like that. So again, I'm doing the same thing. I'm just taking my pliers and I'm just cutting it nice and low, and I can feel that a little bit. So I'm just going to take it and tuck it. And I'm just smoothing it around. There we go. So there's the one side, and this is actually a fastened ring. And you can see that they're not, the rings, these little things aren't perfect, so I could tweak one out a little bit. I can still at this point curl it in further. I can move it up. I can, you know, tweak this out a little bit. So I still have, see how this still moves? I still have movement, which is fine. Until I get the other side fastened, it's going to have a little bit of movement. And I'm okay with that. So I'm going to do the same thing to the other side, and I'll leave the weaving wire attached, and I'll be back and show you how to do the next part. Okay, so I thought I'd get in a little closer so you could see this. So I started the second one, and I got to this point where I've wrapped the 4 wires across the middle. Now, if you're having trouble with these two laying side by side, you can actually take your pliers, as long as you do it gently, and you can flatten these weaving wires to sort of make sure that everything's sort of beside each other rather than on top of each other. Okay, so I get to this point, and now I'm ready to wrap it to the other wire. So I have the two here, so I don't have to worry about spacing at this point. I just need to get it attached to this wire here. So I can wrap it 4 times here, and then 4 times around these two. And then I'm ready to put the beads on, and then I'll fasten it on the other side when I get to the other side the same way. So you could actually wire weave the whole thing. So I'm just going to show you. I just come up between the 2 rings. Now that's too much space, and I can tell it's too much space, so I'm just going to take it and pull. I want these rings to touch this ring, basically. There's 1. 2. 3. See how I stuck my nail in there to make sure that they don't overlap? That's my habit because I can't see that well. So those of you who might be slightly visually impaired, that's a trick you can do that will help. So I have these 4 side by side. So they're now, both of them are attached to each other. It's kind of like a little cage. I don't know how to explain it. Like a little cagey thing. It's cool. I like it. You can already tell this loop is not big enough. So I'm going to just take it and make it a little bit bigger. So you can still tweak at this point, which is great. All right, so now I'm going to put it around the 2 of them. So I'm going to come in to that hole again. And whatever I do to one, I want to keep that consistent. I'm going to push that down because I want to be able to get to the other side of it. 1, 2. Making sure that wire's on the other side, and it doesn't look like it is, so let's push this down. Get out of the way. There we go. Now at this point, if you need to, you can take your rings and open them a little bit. You gotta sort of hold on to this here and then open that a little bit so that you can get those wires in a little bit better. I'm just fiddling. This is a little fiddly. There we go. Got it to lay in there nicely again. So 2, it looks like I'm only going to get about 3. And what's happening is these 2 keep wanting to connect with each other. It's like, stop that. And I can push that loop back once I've got these all connected. I just want to make sure the wires are laying down side by side. Everybody's happy. There we go. So they're side by side. And then I would do a couple of wraps around, like the 4 wraps around this. 1, 2, 3. Get in there. 4. Make sure everything's nice and tight and happy. So at this point, as you can see, I can hold on to that and see I can move this ring on because this weaving here is all that's holding these 2 together. So I can tell I need to tweak these together and clean it up a bit. That's fine. So now I can put the beads on, and or again I could cut it off, attach these 2, and then put the beads on. It's whatever you want to do. When I did them all together, I did this, and then, you know, I worked my way across, and then, or actually it came back over here and then attached before here, attached before here, attached in the middle, attached afterwards, attached in the middle. So you get what I'm saying, right? So I consistently did, and I would have one more attachment here. I would have started here and went here and here. But because I'm having them spaced out, I have to be careful. I don't want to wreck my weight. I don't need to have the extra weaving wire here because this is just part of the back side of the ring that will go, this will go against the side of my finger, and this will go against the side of my finger. So I don't need those two to have wire wrappings. I do need it right here against this one here to make sure there's space for the beads. So I'm coming up from underneath. I'm just going to take a bead, and my end of my wire is a little crooked, so I'm just going to straighten it out. I hate putting beads on my screen because it just messes up the focus, but we're going to go for it. So I'm just putting my 4mm on here. And I know I'm really tight and I know I'm popping off screen, but I'm coming back in. So at this point, you need to figure out, is that enough? Is it wide enough? Is the 4mm wide enough? Do I need more wraps before I start it? Do I want to push it in? What do I want to do? Because if I have this here, it doesn't quite look like it's big enough. I'm not happy with the amount of, see the amount of wire I can see? All right, so let's grab some, we'll grab some silver beads. What do I have here? Those are 11-ohs. Let's grab some 15-ohs. So I'm going to just grab some silver, these are Miyuki 15-ohs. I just happen to have laying on my board because I'm working on a bunch of other stuff at the same time. So I'm going to put one 15-oh before my bead and one 15-oh after my bead if I can get it there. The 15-oh will fit on the 26 gauge, so I got two actually. And I saw that in the camera, not in the on my board here. There we go. Put the big bead on, my 4mm fire polished, and then another 15-oh. Now let's take a look at what this looks like. Way better. I'm quite happy with that. See how that looks way better in there? Now the only thing I'm debating is how much more wraps I needed here. I think I could have used a couple. See how it's sort of butting up against that loop? I don't like that. I'm going to take them off again. And this is a different design than I did the last one. So every time I do a new design with a new combination, I have to figure out, spacing on things. So the other one, I made the space here smaller and did a 3mm bead, and I didn't have any other seed beads. So the 4 wraps was enough, so I'm just adding a couple more. I just want to be able to bring the bead out past the curve in the thing. I'm going to make sure these are all tucked in tight to each other so that they look good. They look nice and neat beside each other. And let's see if I put the beads on now, what it looks like. 1, 2, 3. And I'm just off screen, I know, because my beads are off screen. I just picked the same 3 beads I was talking about before. Put them on. I'm flipping my whole ring around. Now this bottom one is still like catching on the other one and it's still moving around. So I just stick my finger in it to make them happy. Making sure that they're laying side by side when I go to put this on. That's much better. I'm much happier with the way that's laying. Okay, so you can wrap it around a couple times. Now that little 15-oh is going to want to dance around everywhere. So just take your finger, stick it over the beads, and then pull your wire. And then pull your wire out. Pull it tight. So I'm pulling it so that sets the spacing. And the first one's the hardest because you got to set the spacing, and I don't have a lot of wire showing. I'm quite happy with that. So the amount of space I have right now between these two looks like I get quite a few beads. I don't want that many beads. So again, I still have the ability to move. I'm holding onto these wires up here and I'm pushing them together. So that looks like I could do 3 in there. And I think I'm good with that because then if I put it on my finger, you can see that I would be able to see the loops and I would be able to see the 3 stones. Okay, so again, I need to wrap a few times around beside each other, and I'm just coming up from underneath and I'm just making sure that they lay below each other. And I don't care if I leave a little bit of space because I can squeak it up. What I care about is if I leave sticky outies like this on the side. And I think I've overlapped. So give me a second. I got to check under my magnifying glass and I'll be right back. Yep, so I had overlapped a little bit. I couldn't see it with my eyes without my trusty magnifying lamp, which is like so awesome. So that allows me to still work with small beads, even being the age that I am and with the visual impairments that I have. So, and no, I'm not blind or anything, but I, obviously I have trouble seeing as I'm getting older. It's harder to see, and anybody who's older that's watching this channel, which most of my audience is, will attest to the fact that sometimes it gets a little harder to see some of the small stuff once you get older. So value your eyes when you're younger, because you won't necessarily have the beautiful sight that you have now. So I'm just trying to put enough wraps around here that I think I've got enough space to put my next bead. So I'm going to do a couple more wraps, and then we'll put the next bead on. And again, I'm sort of pulling my wraps down and then bringing them up closer. And it's just to keep me, this is my habit, keeps me from overlapping, see? And I bring them up closer. So I think I'm good there. I think I have enough space to put my next bead on. So I'm going to take my 15, another bead. These are the vitriol colors, so I'm trying to get ones that aren't all the same, because they sort of appear to be like slightly different color beads. And as they move around, this one has a real copper feel to it as this one moves around, so I'm taking it. And you see me wrap beads a bazillion times around, put beads on things, so see how the spacing is kind of nice. And look, there's my little 15-0 doing the I'm going for a run. Hey, get back up there. You're the boss of the beads aren't the boss of you. So again, when I get that around, see how there's too much wire there? I'm just going to hold on to the things that I'm pulling with this hand. And it tightens it up a little for me, brings them closer together. I can see that those two are fine. And again, I'm going to do the same thing. And then I'm going to put the third bead on, same fashion, and then I'm going to come back and show you how to do the last couple of things, and you could probably figure that out for now. You could actually go and continue to weave with a fresh wire all across the back. I don't necessarily need to do that. This is really sturdy with a 20 gauge wire. So I'm going to put the third bead in, come and show you how to do this finishing off piece, and then we'll be done for today. Okay, so I have 3 beads on. I just made sure my wires are all nice and even and tight together, so I'm happy there. I took it because I could still move it, because until I fasten this side here, I can still move these apart. I took it and it was like a little bit too wide, so I just brought it in so that like this side the bead's touching this curl, the beads on this side is touching the curl, so they sort of match up. So now I'm ready to weave in the curl. So I'm going to go a couple more wraps, and I can actually stick it still between the band here and bring it around because it's still, see, it's still open there. And once I get that closed, I won't be able to do that anymore. It just makes it easy, and as you can see, I had lots of wire. Now, depending on what you're doing, if you're putting seed beads on like I did in my other version, that requires more wire. And you can, again, add a wire before a section, do a section, and, add wire after the section. These are kind of cool. They sort of move around and change color on me depending on what I'm doing. I like it. So it makes me happy. So I'm just making sure I can tell that that wire is not laying beside that wire. I keep doing that today, and I don't know why. There we go. So everything's as tight as I want them to be. Let's move these 2 rings. So this is my final tweaky adjustment that I can do. I can still open these loops a little bit, so I need to do that on this one. I can tell before I get there that for me to be able to get to weave across here, I'm going to need some space to do that. This one I look like I think I have enough. I'm feeling okay with that. I could probably just use a little bit more space. So this is your last final ability to sort of tweak a little bit. And I'm not talking about like completely redoing a loop at this point. I haven't wrapped this loop yet, so I can still move it out a little bit and move it out. I'm just checking. I need to make sure I have enough space. There we go. I'm going to have to make do. Okay. So, and if you're not on camera, you can take as much time as you want to make these all equal. So now I'm putting this up there, so you can see that it comes to the bottom of it. So I'm going to do 1, 2, and again, I'm just making sure they're laying side by side and it's not on top of each other. I can feel there's something wrong, really wrong there. So I'm not sure what's going on. Yeah, see that? See how that loop's not pulled the way it should be? Pull that back out. Yep, I gotta check what's going on. I'll be right back. Okay, fixed it. So what had happened is I hadn't pulled it tight enough on the first round. So I just backed it out. So I've got 3 wraps there now. And now I'm going to wrap in the middle here. I'm just making sure that they're laying side by side, and that's the hardest part to do for me on camera, because I can't see. So if you have it, I usually have this like 2 inches from my nose with a magnifying glass in between. So, and again, this is still open, so I can still like slide it around there to get it in there nice and smoothly. I'm just checking, I can feel. So that's 3. All right. I'm just putting it in there. Making sure it's not looping around. See, it's trying to go around that loop, and I don't want it to go around the loop. Nope, it's not. Okay, I'm good. Whew. There we go. I'm going to do a couple more. I just want to make sure it looks sort of the same as the other side. And the biggest thing is making sure it's all nice and neat. Okay. So pinch those together. That looks better. See how much nicer that looks? And then I'm going to do the same thing here with this ring here. And I'm going to put 3 more. Now, this outer ring I didn't attach on this side, so I don't have to attach it on this side. And actually, I think I'm going to stop right there because I didn't attach it on this side. So I took it out, so it's not attached anymore. We're good. And I'm going to run my wire down. It's still over that loop. There we go. Come up. I want it to come up. There we go. So it's coming up in the middle, and now I'm ready to cut it off. So I'm going to cut it off. I'm cutting at an angle down below, so I can't feel it, but I can't feel it from the back side either. Okay, so now we got the ring's been a little mauled, nothing major. I'm going to take it and put it back. And I don't remember I told you it would be a size 10. There's your size 10. Look at that. So at this point, if you need to, you can hammer it again to straighten it if you want to, or hammer it to harden it, harden it. So this is the ring that we've got. This is what it looks like. And I'm quite happy with it, with these little pieces on the side. Again, I could wire wrap all the way through here. I could bring these together more. So at this point, if I wanted to, as long as I leave this loop flat, so if I hold onto this loop, if I want to bring these 2 wires together, I just take them and I can squish them in. Look, it squishes in. And then I can take this and hold it here. And I'm holding that loop flat down so that I don't buckle over the loop. And I squish it down. So that brings those 2 back wires a little closer together. And when I put it on, it fits me perfectly. And that's what my ring looks like. Let me just back out here. So I have this lovely ring. So again, this is the loops all together. And I just put the wire wove around the loops. This is the loop with the beads. This is the loop where the loops are on opposite sides of each other. I fastened it. I actually fastened both, and then I put the seed beads, and then I started another wire and put the seed beads, so that I had seed beads in each section, and you could do a pattern, you could do them all one color, you could do one color on one side and one color on the other side, and depending on what you wore up, would look differently, and so you end up having the sort of woven look. And there was one more. Where did it go? There it is. And then this one, I did the curls to the outside on the one set. Remember how I showed you the one set, so the curls one way and then the curls the other way. on the curls one way and then the other way. So this wire here, okay, is the same as this wire here. There's just space between it. Okay. And then I finished it by going around both wires to make sure that they were stayed together. And, you know, made sure they're the same size. Now, if you end up with them slightly different sizes, if you put it on a ring mandrel and you bang it down against an edge, put the smaller side down here and bang against the edge, it'll stretch the smaller side out and make them all the same size. So there's your 4 different rings. This one's almost the same as this one, but a bigger stone. Again, you could use whatever stone you wanted. You could, you know, put a bead woven piece, put a peyote piece in there. You could, you know, put the peyote piece from here to here. You have lots of options. These are fun little rings. They're nice. They're not adjustable, so you have to make them to fit, but they're quite easy to make, and you know, quite easy to make different sizes. Take very little wire, very little supplies. As you've seen, it didn't take me very long at all to make it, other than going off screen to fix little fussies that were going on. So I hope you like this. I hope you learned something. Please like, share, and subscribe. And just a reminder, the full list of materials again is below. And take care and keep on making from Manny's Makings. Bye-bye.